When a lawyer walks out on a billionaire in court, a stunning secret from the Maid is revealed. The courtroom buzzes with tension. It's a spectacle, a public defender taking on a billionaire. Gasps echo as Alex Parker strides down the aisle, his heart thumping, each beat a testament to the working class he proudly represents. Today, he stands for Maria, a single mother and proud immigrant who dared to allege mistreatment against the sleek Thomas Kingston. She is not just a cleaning lady, she is a warrior in her own right, armed with truths that challenge the very foundations of wealth and power. Alex feels the weight of the community behind him, their hopes resting on his shoulders. He recalls his mother's hard work, the sacrifices that shaped him, and the values she instilled, a fierce determination to fight for what is right. His chest tightens as he stands before the jury, energetic flashes of passion ready to spill forth. As he states, Maria deserves respect. Every worker deserves dignity. A ripple of acknowledgement travels through the crowd, and he sees Maria's eyes glisten with unshed tears, but glances from Kingston's sharp-suited defense team are condescending. The sneers cut deep, lingering like a bitter taste. Who was he to fight for the overlooked? Yet Alex digs in his heels. He was here to ignite the flames of justice, not stay silent. Outside the courthouse, throngs of supporters gathered, neighbors, friends, all united by Maria's courage. Their signs read, "Stand with Maria." The bulldozer of wealth was up against the unbreakable spirit of everyday people, and yet, with every session, doubt crept in like a thief. The courtroom, once a symbol of equality, felt more like a stage for the elite, where the instruments of justice were twisted in favor of the powerful. Alex's mind raced. Why was it so hard to break through this glass wall of privilege? He stepped outside to catch his breath, staring up at the towering skyscrapers that represented a world far removed from Maria's humble life. Before he could ponder further, the trial resumed. In a moment thick with excitement, Maria broke her silence, a secret simmering beneath her kitchen apron. "I saw him, Kingston, the accident. It was him." Her voice trembled, yet it carried an electric weight. Gasps erupted in the courtroom. What was once a simple case of mistreatment now trembled with the force of revelation, ready to reshape everything. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As murmurs spread like wildfire among the supporters outside, Alex felt a surge of unity rise, vibrating through the air. The community was galvanized, a collective heartbeat matching Maria's courageous pulse. Perhaps they could topple the mighty empire of Kingston together. In that charged atmosphere, each second felt endless, pregnant with the possibility of change. But doubt still loomed. Could they really challenge the status quo? Would the jury see past the wealth and see the truth? Alex's mind churned. He was torn between a career that shone with promise and the raw, palpable need for justice. Deep down, he knew he could not abandon the fight. The question now, could one heart, alongside a community echoing with voices of the voiceless, overcome the towering walls built by affluence? The stakes were higher than ever, and Alex stood on the brink of a decision that might change everything. The moment Maria's words hung in the air, time itself seemed to pause. Alex's heart raced, the anticipation crackling around him like static electricity. The atmosphere transformed, shifting from a mere battle of wills to something much more profound, a fight for truth. He could see it on the faces of the jurors, shock, curiosity, perhaps even a hint of sympathy. Had Maria just opened a door that many believed was locked tight? Kingston's defense team sprang into action, their confidence cracking like glass. Alex detected the slight flicker of panic in their eyes as the lead attorney, a sharp, imposing figure, rose to question Maria. "You claim to have seen the accident, Ms. Sanchez. But can you provide proof? How can we trust the words of a maid?" A hush fell over the courtroom. Maria's brow furrowed in momentary uncertainty, but Alex sensed her resolve deepening. She took a breath, her chest expanding, filling the space with courage. My eyes don't lie. I saw his car, I saw him leave the scene. Her words were like steel, firm and unyielding. The murmurs from the public gallery grew louder, words of support and encouragement bubbling up, feeding her confidence. Interesting. The attorney returned to his notes, smirking. You want us to believe that you saw all of this from the back of a parking lot? How many times have you lied to cover for your employers? Beneath the barrage, Alex felt Maria tremble, but he quickly took action. Objection, Your Honor. His voice rang clear. This isn't about Maria's character. It's about the truth. The judge shot a warning glance at the defense, who abruptly quieted, their bravado momentarily deflated. For Alex it was a small victory. He was fighting for every person who felt dwarfed by the weight of someone else's wealth and arrogance. As the questioning continued, a fire ignited in Maria. Every question she answered began to peel away the layers of fear. Alex watched her transform from a timid witness to a formidable force, reclaiming her dignity with each word. The audience was hanging on every syllable now. Outside, the crowd surged with electricity, the chants of justice for Maria echoing off the stone walls of the courthouse. It was as if the entire city was holding its breath, willing the scales of justice to tip, but Kingston wasn't finished. An unexpected move rattled Alex. Kingston himself had arrived, a vision of calm amidst chaos. His gaze locked onto Maria, steely and brazen. You think they will believe you? He challenged, his voice dripping with derision, a maid. No one will trust your word against mine. The atmosphere shifted, tension thickening in the air. For a moment, fear slipped back into Maria's eyes. Alex could see her faltering, he had to do something. Taking a huge breath, he spoke strongly, but they will believe her because truth has a voice, and today, Maria is that voice. Echoes of approval rippled through the crowd outside. It propelled Maria forward, urging her to reclaim her narrative as she looked Kingston straight in the eye. You might be rich, but that doesn't mean you can take lives and get away with it. Justice isn't for sale. Applause erupted from the supporters, louder than the objections from the defense team. This was a turning point. Alex could sense the tide shifting, the jury's contemplation heavy in the air. Yet, ominous clouds loomed over his thoughts. Was this revelation enough? Would it be enough to hold Kingston accountable? As the judge banged the gavel, calling for order, Alex's heart raced with anticipation. What would this mean for Maria and the community? It was all or nothing now. The stakes had never been higher, and just beyond the courthouse's doors, he could feel a storm brewing, one that might just sweep Kingston from his pedestal once and for all. But as they prepared for the next round, a shadow moved through the crowd. A familiar face emerged, eyes filled with unexpected secrets and perhaps too many answers. The next chapter was ready to unfold. Would it break them, or set them free? As the tension in the courtroom simmered, the atmosphere felt electric. Alex glanced over at Maria, who stood resolute, her determination shining through. She had just confronted Kingston, but uncertainty flickered behind her fierce stare. What if all her bravery didn't amount to justice? The door swung open, and there stood Jenna, the woman who had once been Alex's mentor. The crowd gasped. She was a renowned attorney, known for her fierce reputation in the courtroom. But now, her presence seemed like a bolt from the blue. Jenna's confident stride was interrupted when Kingston's attorney pointed an accusatory finger at her. What is she doing here? He demanded. Jenna stopped short at the front of the courtroom, letting the murmurs swirl around. I'm here for Maria, she said, her voice ringing clear. The judge raised an eyebrow, intrigued. It was unusual for a prominent attorney to enter a case mid-trial, especially against someone as powerful as Kingston. Maria's eyes widened, hope blooming in her chest. Could Jenna be the key to unlocking the truth? Order. The judge declared, his gavel striking the wood with authority. Counselor, do you have a position in this case? Jenna's jaw tightened, and she took a step closer. I'm here to support my former protégé, she replied. Maria deserves to be heard. And I have information that could change everything. The tension in the room morphed into something more palpable, as if the walls were pressing in. Kingston's expression soured, the confidence that had puffed him up suddenly deflating. Very well, the judge said, granting her permission to continue. Proceed. Jenna squared her shoulders, her eyes sweeping the courtroom. What happened that night was not a mere accident. Maria was not alone in her claims. Several witnesses saw Kingston's car speeding away, but their voices were silenced. I have names, and I've got a report. Her voice dropped, low enough for the courtroom to lean in. And I can prove that the car wasn't just speeding, it was reckless, and that's not what Kingston admitted. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Alex felt the pulse of hope quicken in his veins. This changed everything. Jenna had hidden evidence, suggesting a pattern of deceit in Kingston's actions that could shift the focus of the jury. Without missing a beat, Maria found her voice. You think you can hide the truth? She exclaimed, her spirit reigniting. I saw it, and now others will too. Let us not get ahead of ourselves, Kingston's attorney interjected sharply, but the crack in his bravado betrayed his rising panic. Maria turned, looking into Jenna's eyes, seeking guidance, seeking strength. Jenna smiled gently, giving her an encouraging nod. It felt like a generational handoff, a passing of the torch, and the room was awash in bravery. The judge motioned for silence again, raising an eyebrow at Kingston. Are you ready to address these new developments? For a moment, Kingston's usually composed facade wavered. His mouth opened and closed, the reality that he could no longer control the narrative beginning to sink in. Alex stepped forward, adrenaline surging through him. Your Honor, this is the moment we've all been waiting for. We have proof that the truth cannot be diluted with wealth and lies. Maria deserves to tell her story. The words lingered in the air, a challenge thrown at Kingston's feet. The audience erupted in applause, like waves crashing against a rocky shore, feeding off the fiery spirit of the courtroom. But just when it seemed Maria's moment had arrived, a loud crash echoed through the courtroom. A figure in a dark coat had pushed through the doors forcefully. The collective breath of everyone in the room hitched. Who could possibly be there to change the course of this battle again? Alex turned sharply, dread settling in his stomach. The stakes just rose higher, and he could only speculate what this new interruption would mean for Maria. Would it propel her forward, or pull her back? The courtroom fell silent, all eyes fixated on the newcomer. The figure pushed through the door with an urgency that filled the air with anticipation. A young woman, no older than 25, her hair cascading around her face, stood there. She looked pale, the kind of pale that suggested she had seen something too much to bear. Stop! She shouted, her voice slicing through the thick tension like a knife. Everyone turned toward her, confusion and disbelief rippling across the courtroom. Your Honor, she gasped, rushing forward. I have something to say. The judge adjusted his glasses, clearly taken aback. Who are you? He barked. My name is Lila, she said, her voice trembling but fierce. I used to work for Mr. Kingston. I saw the accident. I'm a witness. Gasps erupted once more. Alex's heart raced. This was unexpected, but it felt like just what Maria needed. Kingston's attorney snapped back to life, a smug smirk creeping across his face. Witness? What could a maid possibly know? He sneered. More than you think, Lila said, gathering her strength. I was on the street that night. I was cleaning the lobby of the building across from where it happened. Her eyes darted between Kingston and Maria. I saw Kingston's car, and I remember the details. I saw everything. The weight of those words landed heavily. The room was abuzz with whispered exchanges, shocked expressions replacing amusement. Lila's chest heaved as she continued, her determination pushing the fear aside. I saw Maria and her brother. They were just leaving the restaurant. Kingston's car sped out of nowhere order. The judge commanded, looking more curious than angry now. Lila took that as her cue to continue. It wasn't just speeding. Someone inside the car yelled something, but I couldn't make it out. I thought they were just reckless, but now I understand it was something worse. Something that could change the whole trial. Kingston's face was a mask of anger and disbelief. This is absurd. Your accusation means nothing. Lila pressed on. You don't get to silence me any longer. I kept quiet out of fear, but I can't do that anymore. Someone has to speak the truth. Maria looked on, her heart swelling with gratitude. Lila was taking a stand for her. This was more than she ever could have hoped for. Your Honor, Jenna interjected, stepping forward. If I may, this is critical. We need to hear everything she has to say. No. Kingston's lawyer shouted, panic creeping into his voice. This is preposterous. She is a maid with no credibility. But the judge, intrigued by the fierce emotion in Lila's plea, nodded. Let her speak. Even the smallest voice can carry a great weight. The courtroom quieted down as Lila's resolve only intensified under the attention. Sitting amidst the sound of breaths held tightly, she began to recall every detail, every sound that echoed in her memory. I remember the lights, the speed, and a figure someone in the back seat shouting at the driver. Then the crash. I thought at first it was an accident, but now. Her voice broke a little as she looked at Maria. I know it wasn't It wasn't just reckless driving, there was malice behind it. Alex exchanged a glance with Maria, her eyes wide with disbelief and elation. The weight of Lila's words could shift everything, sealing Kingston's fate and vindicating Maria's struggle, but Kingston wasn't done. His piercing gaze found Lila. You're lying. You think anyone will believe a lowly maid over me? The judge pounded his gavel, but the air grew thick with tension again. How would this new information reshape the trial? Would it expose Kingston for his deceit, or would it unleash a desperate attempt to bury the truth even deeper? Maria held her breath, heart pounding in her chest. This was her fight, and Lila's courage could be the light she needed. As Lila took another breath, her voice steadying, the courtroom leaned in. I know it sounds unbelievable, but what I have to say could not only bring Kingston to justice but also uncover secrets even darker. What secrets could Lila reveal? And would Maria finally get the justice she so desperately sought? Lila felt a wave of fear wash over her as all eyes bore into her, but she couldn't turn back now. She took a deep breath, the weight of the moment hanging heavily in the air. That night, she began, her voice gaining strength. I remember hearing a man yell at the driver. It was a command. A clear order. Go. I didn't realize then that it was more than a careless driving decision. The courtroom reacted. Murmurs cut through the silence like a knife. Lila's heart raced, knowing she was stepping onto dangerous ground. She needed to make them understand. They were in a rush to leave, to escape. I've worked for Mr. Kingston long enough to know that he is not the kind of man who takes responsibility for his actions. Kingston's face darkened, his eyes narrowing like slits. You're grasping at straws. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Lila shot back, her resolve ignited. I may have been a maid, but I witnessed something far more than the accident. I saw the arrogance, the entitlement. Kingston believed he was above everything. He believed he could silence anyone who dared to speak the truth. Maria watched Lila speak, her admiration for this brave woman swelling. Lila didn't just have the courage to stand up, she had the courage to voice what many had thought but never dared to say. In that moment, it wasn't just Lila's life at stake, it was a battle against injustice, a fight for those who had been wronged. Lila, please, Jenna called softly, as if urging her to take a breath. Can you tell us exactly what you saw? With a nod, Lila pressed on. I heard the shouting. I saw Kingston behind the wheel, looking frantic. Her eyes were bright now, fueled by the urgency of the truth. I saw Maria's brother through the window. He looked shocked, terrified. Kingston didn't slow down. He didn't even try to avoid them. Kingston's attorney stood up, frustration evident on his face. This is pure speculation. A desperate woman trying to get attention. The judge's gavel pounded again, silencing the outburst. Order in the court. Let her continue. There was a moment of silence, then Lila continued, narrowing her gaze on Kingston. And there was something else. She gulped, feeling the weight of the moment. Before the crash, I saw something fly from the car like a bottle. It shattered on the pavement beside Maria. Gasps filled the room again, but this time, it was an electrifying sound. Maria's heart dropped. She hadn't known that detail, had never been told. Her brother had never mentioned a bottle, but everything felt darker now. I didn't think anything of it until I learned more, Lila confessed, catching her breath. The pieces of the night were slowly falling into place in her mind. It's tied to Kingston, and I think enough. Kingston shouted, his voice echoing through the room. You're making a fool of yourself, pushing lies to protect someone who doesn't belong here. Maybe I'm doing it for everyone who has suffered because of you, Lila said, her voice rising. Your lies end today, Kingston. You can't intimidate people anymore. This time, the truth will come out. With those words, the room seemed to shift. The tension was palpable but now charged with something electric, hope. Maria felt it surge through her, lifting her spirits. Lila was fighting back for them both. Your Honor, Jenna stepped up, her voice steady, we cannot let this evidence go unexamined. It could change everything, and we must uncover the truth. The judge nodded thoughtfully and turned to Kingston. Your legacy is unraveling swiftly, Mr. Kingston. Let's see what happens when we dig deeper. As the courtroom buzzed with renewed energy, Lila looked at Maria and saw solidarity in her eyes, a glimmer of hope. But she also sensed that moments of light could quickly become shrouded in shadow. What darkness was Kingston hiding? And how far would he go to silence those who dared to challenge his power? The answers loomed just behind the courtroom walls, waiting to be discovered. Lila could hear the murmur of the crowd, their whispers swirling around her like a storm, and she felt every heartbeat pulsing through the tension in the room. Kingston's attorney was scrambling, desperately trying to regain control amid the rising chaos. Your Honor, he pleaded, his voice rising to match the agitation in the air. This is a distraction. What does a bottle have to do with anything? But Lila stood firm, anchored by the truth she was fighting for. It has everything to do with it. She insisted, her tone resolute. That bottle was no accident. It held secrets that Kingston is afraid of. Kingston's face twisted with rage, a stark contrast to the polished, untouchable billionaire persona he usually projected. She could see the cracks now, the way he was losing his grip. The tightly controlled mask was slipping, and with it, a flicker of fear. The judge's gavel came down again, this time with a sense of urgency. You will have your chance to question her, Mr. Kingston, he said, turning to him. But I want to hear everything. Lila's eyes locked onto Kingston's. She didn't flinch. There was power in speaking up, in exposing the shadows lurking in plain sight. You thought you could bury the truth, didn't you, Kingston? But it's alive, and it's coming for you, she said, feeling a surge of strength. Maria leaned forward, her heart pounding. This moment was about more than just the accident. It was about redemption, about finally shining light on a darkened past. She remembered her brother, his laughter, his dreams crushed by one reckless moment. If Lila could expose Kingston, perhaps it would bring some semblance of justice. Lila, Jenna whispered, urgency in her voice. Focus on that night. What did you see after the bottle fell? Lila took a deep breath, allowing the memories to unspool. After the crash, I heard the man who yelled. He was furious. It was like he was waiting for someone. And then, a figure emerged from the shadows, a woman. She was dressed in red, looking panicked, looking for the bottle. A ripple of intrigue washed over the courtroom, the audience hanging on to her every word. I thought she was just another bystander, but now I see it differently. She was connected to Kingston, wasn't she? Kingston shouted, "This is a baseless fabrication." But the tremor in his voice betrayed him. He knew Lila was onto something. Was it a deal gone wrong? Lila pressed, her voice unwavering. Did you think you could intimidate everyone into silence? I refuse to be silenced. Your empire of lies will crumble because of your arrogance. The room erupted with disbelief and shock, whispers rising and falling like waves. Maria felt a sharp pang of hope. Perhaps this time, the truth would shatter the facade Kingston had built around himself. Stephen, Kingston's lawyer, looked shaken. Your Honor, this is nonsense. We were here for a simple traffic accident. How does this even remotely connect? Let it be connected. Lila's voice rang out, her conviction pouring into each syllable. We cannot ignore the truth anymore. The woman in red, she must have information. She was involved. The woman? Kingston stammered, eyes darting, trying to regain composure. You cannot possibly, you're mistaken. Lila could feel a flame igniting within her. No, I'm not. I know what I saw because it sat heavy on my conscience, what you've all tried to bury. This isn't just about that night, it's about the lives you've disrupted, the lives you've disregarded. A tense silence fell over the courtroom as the judge peered down at Kingston. It seems we have more to investigate than a mere traffic accident. We need to find this woman. The power shifted now, and with it, Lila felt a sense of agency rising within her. She wasn't just a maid anymore. She was a voice for the unheard. As the gavel came down again, sealing the moment with authority, Maria's heart raced. Would they finally uncover the whole truth? But then the door to the courtroom creaked open, and in stepped a shadowy figure, cloaked in uncertainty. As all eyes turned, the anticipation hung thick in the air. Who was the woman in red? And what secrets would she bring with her? The figure in the doorway paused, framed by the sunlight spilling through the courtroom's tall windows. It was a woman, the memories of red flashing instantly in Lila's mind. Her heart raced. Who was she? The crowd shifted restlessly, anticipation buzzing through the air. Lila felt her stomach drop. This could change everything. As the woman stepped further into the room, the whispers intensified. Her red dress clung to her frame, a striking contrast to the sea of muted colors in the audience. She looked both confident and terrified, glancing at Kingston before fixing her gaze on the judge. Your Honor, she began, her voice steady yet laced with a hint of nervousness. I have something to say. Lila couldn't take her eyes off her. Who was this courageous woman? What did she know? She knew in her bones that whatever came next would shift the tide. Please state your name, the judge's voice rang out, breaking the heavy silence. Maria Velasquez, the woman replied, her words clear as a bell. Lila caught her breath. This was a name Maria had never forgotten, the picture of her brother's life suddenly flickering before her eyes. The world seemed to shrink into a pin-drop silence as everyone turned to listen, hanging on every syllable. I was there that night, Maria continued, her eyes scanning the room. I saw it all happen. The crash, the screaming. I tried to help. Help? Kingston cut in, his voice dripping with mockery. And what exactly did you see? Maria stood taller, undeterred. I saw you, Kingston, and I saw her, the woman in red. Lila felt a spark of hope ignite within her. Maria Velasquez had witnessed it, and now she was here to speak the truth. Speak clearly, Maria, what do you remember? The judge urged gently. A bottle was thrown, Your Honor. I saw it land and shatter in the street. But I also saw a deal made between Kingston and a man standing near the car. They didn't see me. They thought they were hidden, but she hesitated for a moment, glancing back at Kingston who now shifted uncomfortably. I heard them arguing. They traded something for silence. The woman looked frantic as she searched for the bottle. I realized later, it wasn't just any bottle, it was a message. A murmur swept through the audience while Kingston's face darkened, a shadow falling over his features. This is absurd. You're just grasping at straws. His voice rose, shaking but with an edge of fury. Your Honor, Lila interjected, emboldened by Maria's presence. What she is saying confirms everything. The woman in red was involved, and she knows what happened that night. We've spent too long hiding behind layers of deception. It's time for all of it to come into the light. Maria nodded in agreement, urgency lighting up her features. She turned back to Kingston, determination in her eyes. You think you can smother the truth? You can't. It's too big, and I'm not leaving this courtroom until I've said my piece. Glancing at Lila, Maria could see her fire mirrored back. In this moment, they were allies, two women standing together in the face of a powerful man who sought to silence them. What happened next? The judge pressed, his attention glued to Maria. I can't remember everything, but I know the woman in red was scared. And I know it was a fraud. Kingston's name was in a deal that night, a larger scheme hidden behind the smoke and mirrors. Lila's heart thundered. They were on the brink of something monumental. She needed to know more. But before she could urge Maria to continue, Kingston's lawyer sprang up. Your Honor. We must verify her claims before continuing. This is a courtroom, not a soap opera. The judge's gavel echoed with a strike of authority, but Lila felt the ground tremble beneath them. This wasn't merely about a car accident anymore. This was about a tangled web of lies wrapped around Kingston, and Maria had just pulled the thread. As the electricity in the room grew, Lila turned to Maria, hoping to capture her gaze. What was in the bottle, Maria? What did it mean? In that moment, as the courtroom held its breath, the truth lingered in the air like a promise. Just then, Maria's eyes locked onto Lila's, frightened yet determined. Everything is connected, she said, her voice quivering, but there was fire in her spirit. And it's about to come unraveling. What were they about to unveil? Would the truth finally dismantle Kingston's fortress of lies? The tension in the courtroom was palpable. The buzz of whispers grew louder, like static before a thunderstorm. Lila held her breath as Maria's words hung in the air, echoing in her mind. Everything is connected. The promise of that revelation made her heart race, each beat echoing with the weight of possibility. Your Honor, Kingston's lawyer interjected, a scowl plastered on his face, we need to establish the credibility of this so-called witness before she continues her story. But the judge was already leaning into the moment, intrigued. Ms. Velasquez, please continue. We need to know what you mean by everything being connected. Maria shifted slightly, as if the energy in the room had shifted her resolve into something stronger. The bottle was part of something bigger. Something planned. Her voice took on a more urgent tone. I overheard a name, someone involved in this, a name I've kept buried, afraid if I spoke it, something terrible would happen. Lila felt the room still, all eyes on Maria. The echo of conspiracy whispered across the audience. They were hungry for the truth. Why now, Maria? Why speak up after all this time? Lila asked, gently encouraging the woman to open up. A tear glistened in Maria's eye as she replied, because I can't carry the weight of silence anymore. The woman in red isn't just a victim, she is part of this web. And I need to put it to rest before it destroys more lives. What lives? Kingston scoffed, but the mockery lacked its usual bite. Somewhere deep within, even he sensed the urgency forming, a tide that wouldn't be stopped. My brother, for one, Maria replied, and Lila felt her gut twist. He was innocently caught in the middle that night. Didn't he deserve any of this? Gasps rippled through the crowd. The gravity of Maria's words hit like a punch. So many lives tangled in the consequences of one moment. It lent an emotional depth that Lila couldn't shake off. Your Honor, Maria continued, trembling but resolute, I remember the woman in red now. Her panic was all too real. She was trying to escape something or someone. Lila leaned in, hanging on every word. Do you remember her face? Do you know who she is? Maria shook her head, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. I only caught a glimpse. But back then I felt a connection, a frenzy of fear. I think she was afraid for her life. Kingston's expression darkened, and Lila could see a flicker of something. Could it be fear? She could sense that he was losing control, and she couldn't help but feel empowered by it. Don't you want to know the truth, Kingston? Lila challenged, her voice rising above the murmurs. About that night, about what really happened. Don't you want to clear your name? I Kingston stammered, his bravado cracking. This is insanity. But Maria pressed on. No, it's the truth. And it's out there. The police report, the evidence, it was all overlooked. I know it is. The names involved, everything is tangled up. What names, Maria? The judge urged, sensing the momentum, his gavel poised and ready. Cleary and Darnell, she whispered, the names barely managing to cross her lips. A hush fell over the audience, disbelief washing over their faces. Those names stood heavy, like an anchor in stormy waters. Lila felt an icy rush of realization hit her. She recognized those names, linked to Kingston, to treachery, and to betrayal. It was all starting to make sense, the threads weaving together with a startling clarity. Then, from the back of the room, an unexpected figure appeared. Lila squinted as the figure moved closer, an attorney with a familiar face, someone she least expected to see again. Your Honor, I need to consult with my client. He called out, anxiety threading his voice. There was something urgent in his step. Lila's stomach twisted again. What was he doing here? As the conversation shifted focus, a flicker of dread crossed Maria's face. No. They're coming, they can't stop this now. We have to expose them before it's too late. The sudden tension exploded in the air, a revelation, a connection, and danger looming just out of sight. Who else was involved? What else lay buried, waiting to be uncovered? The sense of impending revelation loomed like storm clouds about to break. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifted abruptly. Lila could feel it in her bones, a strange charge in the air, thick like smoke. Maria's eyes darted nervously, glancing back toward the figure of the attorney who had just arrived. It was as if he brought shadows with him, and the light that had just begun to illuminate the truth faltered. Your Honor, Kingston's lawyer boomed, regaining control, we should be cautious about this so-called memory. Simply invoking names does not make them culpable. The room mumbled in agreement, but the murmurs had softened. The audience was caught between skepticism and the pull of the unexpected. Lila's heart raced. Kingston was cornered. He might have been rich and powerful, but in that moment he was no more than a deer trapped in the headlights. The uncertainty painted his features with desperation. Ms. Velasquez, the judge pressed, would you explain what you meant by their coming? The tension escalated, every eye in the room fixated on Maria. I don't have all the answers, Maria stammered, her voice trembling but defiant. But I know that people would do anything to keep this secret buried. I've felt it, the cold shadows lurking just beyond our reach. It's true that people went missing, people who knew something, and they threatened me, too. My family, they could be next. A gasp echoed through the courtroom, the gravity of her words weighing like a stone. Lila's mind raced. Who would go to such lengths? Kingston's smirk had vanished, replaced by a sudden pallor. Had he underestimated Maria's resolve? Your Honor, Kingston interrupted, his voice shaking. This is an obvious ploy to divert attention. Ms. Velasquez is clearly in over her head. Maybe. But that doesn't make her wrong, Lila shot back, her indignation pulling her out of her seat. She had never felt this kind of urgency before. She needed to protect Maria and everyone whose life had twisted into the web of lies. What if there is a truth that could shatter Kingston's world, not by chance, but by design? Kingston shot her a glare filled with venom. You're way out of your league, Lila. You have no idea who you're dealing with. But Lila wouldn't back down. Or maybe you're the one acting bigger than the truth, Kingston. Everyone in this room might just be one revelation away from an explosive reality. The words hung in the air, each syllable echoing, challenging the tension that had been building all around them. The audience stirred, an electric energy sparking as they processed what Lila was saying. Then, without warning, the doors at the back creaked open and a figure stepped forward, silhouetted against the harsh light. Lila squinted. Could it be? A woman, disheveled but fierce, moved through the crowd. I have information that will change everything, she declared, urgency spilling from her lips. The courtroom quieted again, all eyes turning toward her, holding their breath. Who are you? The judge asked, both surprise and authority lacing his voice. My name is Clara, the woman said, taking each step with a confidence that suggested she had lived through her share of storms. And I worked for the Clearys. I know what happened that night. Gasps erupted, and Kingston's expression shifted, now a mask of pure panic. This was no mere witness, this was a flame igniting the dry brush of a forest, and Lila could feel the heat rising. What do you know? Maria implored, a flicker of hope igniting in her desperate gaze. Clara took a deep breath, her resolve glinting under the courtroom's harsh lights. I was there. And everything you think you know about that night, it's all wrong. There's a deeper truth, and it involves you, Kingston. You can't stop it. Lila felt her heart race again. The moment was surreal, a tide turning, and she could sense the storms on the horizon. Would the truth finally be unearthed, or was this just the beginning of something darker? As the crowd leaned in to hear what Clara had to say, Lila wondered, could they finally shine a light on what had been hidden for so long, or was there something more sinister and powerful waiting to strike back? The courtroom was electric. Clara stood there, her presence commanding, but the air was thick with both hope and despair. The truth was close now, hovering like a storm cloud, and yet the shadows that loomed were suffocating. Alex felt adrenaline coursing through him, an instinct telling him that today everything would change. Your Honor, I swear to tell the truth, Clara's voice echoed with solemnity, stirring the audience back to life. On the night of the accident, I witnessed everything. It was not merely a reckless driving incident. She drew in a breath, collecting her thoughts as she prepared to peel back layers of deception one by one. Maria stood beside Lila, their eyes reflecting a shared determination. Clara spoke, her words spilling like water breaking through the dam. The Clearys' Thomas Kingston's associates were involved in something far more sinister. They made deals for shadows and silenced the truth to keep their empires intact. A collective gasp rippled through the gallery. Lila felt her heart race. They were uncovering the intertwined web of lies and dark truths that had ensnared so many lives in this courtroom. Kingston's expression peeled back to reveal panic, pure terror lurking behind his polished exterior. For the first time, resistance flickered in his eyes. This is absurd, he shouted, his bravado cracking. This is just another ploy. Clara held firm. The bottle that shattered on the pavement wasn't just a bottle, it contained substances that were part of their operation. I saw them. They were desperate and willing to do anything to protect their interests. Gasps echoed once more, but this time, they were accompanied by murmurs of disbelief turning into conviction. Clara's admission set off a chain reaction. A whirlwind of questions ignited in Lila's mind. What was in that bottle? What other sinister dealings lay buried beneath Kingston's wealth and influence? Alex moved closer to the jury, his heart pounding, every word Clara spoke a reminder of the gravity of the moment. Then why did you hide this information? The lead juror asked Clara, her voice unsteady yet commanding. I had to, Clara's voice broke, but her resolve remained. I feared for my life and the lives of those I loved. I watched people disappear when they got too close to the truth. The heaviness of her words settled in, an unmistakable chill sweeping through the room. The audience leaned in, invested in this unfolding drama, their breaths held taut. Your Honor, Jenna interjected, stepping forward, we can't let this be silenced. These names, this evidence, it's all connected. We need a thorough investigation. This is bigger than any of us. Kingston's lawyer scrambled, Your Honor, this testimony is dubious at best. Let the truth light the way, the judge snapped, silencing him. I want to hear everything. That urgency electrified the air. And if there are those who tried to silence Clara, we need to ensure her safety. Protect her at all costs. Maria stepped up, her voice steady and fierce. I'm not afraid anymore. My brother didn't deserve what happened to him, and no one should live in fear of speaking out. With every heartbeat, the courtroom shifted. The collective resolve of everyone there began to illuminate what had once felt like an insurmountable wall. Lila saw it reflected in the eyes of her community, an unshakable belief that they were stronger when they stood together. Clara gathered herself again, her voice rising above the din. I witnessed the negotiations, the preparations for that night. I was there when the deal was struck. Kingston's name was invoked. He's involved in something far bigger than any of us could have imagined. Maria's heart soared. Clara was risking everything, and this time, so was she. We're here to hold you accountable, Kingston. No more secrets. The room erupted. Justice for Maria. The audience chanted, a tide of emotions flooding through the crowd. The powerful billionaires might think they could control the story, but the truth was echoing louder. In that moment, as the gavel pounded, the realization struck. The injustices could unravel. The layers of pressure began to peel back. With Kingston's confidence faltering under scrutiny, the pressure pushed him to react. That's enough. He thundered, but the desperation fell on deaf ears. The community's strength had grown palpable, transforming what was merely a courtroom drama into a movement. They were fighting for their dignity, a brighter tomorrow that would echo in history. As the crowd thundered behind Maria, Lila, and Clara, Alex felt a wave of belief wash over him. The stakes were high, but this was their pivotal moment. Before the courtroom could erupt again, the judge raised his hand. Order. He commanded. We will take a recess. This court needs to comprehend the depths to which this case has plunged. No one leaves. The people burst into cheers, hugging, supporting one another, igniting a fire of hope within heart and spirit, a communal bond stronger than any wealth or power could shatter. As the gavel rang out, Maria met Alex's gaze, brow furrowed but determined. She knew they were on the brink of answers, on the edge of justice. This was the start of something new. This is when the people take back their rights. They were no longer just faces in the crowd, they were voices rising above the noise, challenging an empire built on lies, and she would not rest until her brother's name was cleared, and the truth blinded the darkness around Kingston. In that courtroom, a revolution began, a revolution fueled by the courage to expose that which had long been kept hidden. Now, as it all culminated in front of their eyes, they stood united between hope and justice that could finally be served. As they took that breath of fresh air together, this was just the beginning. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. You know it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending, because your voice matters. This is the moment to show your support for stories that inspire change. Together, let us make sure the truth is heard.